Hello and welcome to episode 663 of the Our Lady of Fatima podcast. It is my pleasure to be with you this evening. My name is Terrence M. Stanton. We are recording on Monday, September 25th, 2023, in the year of our Lord Jesus Christ. Let us begin with the Monday prayer. To the Most Blessed Virgin Mary, to obtain holy perseverance by the great saint and doctor of the Church, Alphonsus Liguori. O Queen of Heaven, I, who was once a miserable slave of Lucifer, now dedicate myself to thee, to be thy servant forever. I offer myself to honor thee and serve thee during my whole life. Do thou accept me, and refuse me not as I should deserve. O my mother, in thee have I placed all my hopes. From thee do I expect every grace. I bless and thank God, who in his mercy has given me this confidence in thee, which I consider a pledge of my salvation. Alas, miserable wretch that I am, I have hitherto fallen, because I have not had recourse to thee. I now hope that through the merits of Jesus Christ and thy prayers, I have obtained pardon. But I may again lose divine grace. The danger is not past. My enemies do not sleep. How many new temptations have I still to conquer? Ah, my most sweet lady, protect me, and permit me not again to become their slave. Help me at all times. I know that thou wilt help me, and that with thy help I shall conquer if I recommend myself to thee. But this is what I fear. I fear that in time of danger I may neglect to call upon thee, and thus be lost. I ask thee then for this grace. Obtain that in the assaults of hell I may always have recourse to thee, saying, Mary, help me. My mother, permit me not to lose my God. Today, friends, we're going to take a look at part 2 of the 1978 investigation into Vatican Freemasonry by Caterina Lorenzo Molo, PhD, published at 1peter5.com today as I'm recording this, Monday, September 25. Some light at the end of the tunnel shone, with the more positive reception of Archbishop Gagnon's evidence with the next pontiff, John Paul I. The new Holy Father did not waste time and did not put off Gagnon's request to present his report. Unlike the previous pontiff, the new Holy Father cut to the chase and said what needed to be said. After seeing Gagnon's evidence, Freemason bishops, any Catholic, lay or cleric who enters Freemasonry incurs automatic excommunication, Canon 2335. The following are more excerpts to illustrate the contrast between Paul VI and John Paul's response. Archbishop Gagnon. Archbishop Bugnini directed the liturgical reform, creating new liturgical and sacramental rites. He welcomed Protestant scholars to take part, a renewal that seems rather to be a reinvention. Liturgical experimentation has been rampant, making a plaything of the most solemn rites of the Church, and he presided over this revolution. John Paul, we are aware. Archbishop Gagnon, the gravity of allowing Sebastiano Baggio, cardinal and Freemason, to continue as prefect of the Sacred Congregation for Bishops was simply and completely intolerable. But even Cardinal Benelli himself seemed to also compromise and cower, as evident in Pope John Paul's move to seek Gagnon's advice. Cardinal Benelli suggests I appoint Baggio to Venice. He says it's the only way Cardinal Baggio will go quietly. Cardinal Benelli is concerned that his brother Cardinal is in a unique position to blackmail any number of important and key people. Cardinal Benelli's advice is similar to Paul VI's resolution to the Bugnini problem, of which Father Muir himself says, why they sent him to Iran instead of straight to HE double hockey sticks makes no sense to me. To which Archbishop Gagnon answered, it was done to avoid further scandal, at least was the answer I received when I asked the very same question you just asked, the very same question Cardinal Staffa asked, and Cardinal Oddi asked, and Benelli asked. Hence, to John Paul I's question, Archbishop Gagnon gives a most interesting response that allows him to only very subtly rebuke his most valued mentor, Benelli. If Cardinal Benelli says, send him to Venice, then I would send him to Venice. Furthermore, if Cardinal Benelli were to tell me that I confront the man myself and hand him his walking papers, then I would tell him where to go. and the fastest way to get there. In other words, Most Holy Father, you, Pope John Paul, must confront the evil in person. You must rid Rome of the evil. John Paul's response? Exactly what we feared you would say. But then again, we can only speculate or surmise based on John Paul's reaction. It was a mere rhetorical test, as both John Paul and Benelli knew what Guignon's answer would be. Considering the pontiff was new and an outsider to the Curia, to his credit, he immediately met with Guignon and recognized the inevitable for Freemasons, automatic excommunication, and then asked Archbishop Guignon for his recommendation. The Pope immediately met with Baggio on the same day. No one else was present, and the only testimony about the encounter came via the grapevine in the days after the Swiss guards on duty, who later reported voices were raised. The next day, October 16, 1978, the Holy Father was dead, and John Paul II was elected Pope. It was 1979, 3 months into the papacy, and Archbishop Guignon had not been called to present the results of his investigation, in spite of various attempts by Cardinal Benelli to procure a meeting with the new pontiff. Meanwhile, Baggio was still in charge of the world's bishops, and Villot remained Secretary of State. Father Muir recognized reality. The evidence seemed conclusive that both Archbishop Bugnini and Cardinal Baggio were Freemasons. How could this state of affairs have been allowed to go on for so long? And in the case of Cardinal Baggio, this was still the case. Prelates? They were excommunicated Catholics. Father Muir recalls a conversation he and Father Marini had regarding the new pope, who had kept both Villot and Baggio and reconfirmed every member of the corrupt Vatican government as unpardonable stupidity. As efforts to get a meeting with the new pope continued to fail, Father Muir asked Guignon, where is Cardinal Benelli in all of this? Why wasn't he rattling a few cages? Wojtyła was his man, so where is Benelli? Why hasn't he stepped up to the plate and helped you? Archbishop Guignon responded, we met, we talked, we agreed. This pope is off to a very bad start, reappointing every curial department head to his same position, a major mistake. He told me to phone Cardinal Villot and to insist on an audience with the Holy Father. Alone, he cautioned. I have phoned his office several times, left messages, nothing. On the Pope's move to retain Villot and Baggio, Archbishop Guignon replied, a terrible misstep, grave mistake. It's as if he considers the Church's central government to be of tertiary importance. There's a startling similarity with Paul VI's reaction to Moreau's death versus Guignon's damning report. The similarity is further revealed in Guignon's response as to what he thought were the new Holy Father's primary and secondary concerns. Poland's liberation from communism, a noble cause, but not the reason he was elected pastor of the Church Universal, and traveling. He leaves for Mexico, the Dominican Republic, and the Bahamas in 2 weeks, already doing the preliminaries for a trip to Poland. Traveling and patriotism and freedom for Poland versus the Church Universal can safely be judged to have been deemed more pressing based on the choices made and actions taken than Freemasons running the Vatican. But at last, on February 6, 1979, Archbishop Guignon would finally meet the new pope to present the results of his investigation. But Guignon's meeting with the pope had been a disaster, so much so the Archbishop decided to leave Rome and the Vatican the next day, declaring, let them wallow in their corruption if that be their will. I will not be a part of it one day longer. Archbishop Guignon went to Colombia, but was asked to return to the Vatican after the assassination attempt on Pope John Paul II. The Pope instructed Cardinal Casaroli to look for him, as he earlier informed John Paul II of an attempt on his life during their last meeting prior to Guignon leaving Rome for Colombia. John Paul II asked him to rejoin the Roman Curia, to which Guignon responded with 2 conditions: the removal of Cardinal Baggio from the Congregation for Bishops and of Bishop Paul Marcinkus from the Vatican Bank. John Paul II made him cardinal in 1985. He passed away in 2007. Baggio was relieved of his position in 1984 and was named president of the Pontifical Commission for Vatican City-State. While a demotion indeed to have a Freemason linger, just as Bugnini was allowed to linger, both retaining positions, is another illustration of this triumvirate problem with effeminacy, naivete, and pacifism. It is safe to declare, in reality, both were excommunicates. Baggio died in 1993. Bugnini stayed on as nuncio in Iran and died in 1982. Cardinal Benelli was asked to become Vatican Secretary of State in 1982, but 10 days after his private audience with the Pope, he died of a heart attack. There is no further mention of the damning evidence and whatever happened to Cardinal Gagnon's report, and how damning it must have been, because earlier on in the investigation, when Cardinal Benelli first verified the evidence provided by Cardinals Odi and Staffa, Benelli had said, although Baggio and Bugnini were heavyweights in the scandal, they were just, quote, the tip of the iceberg. If Benelli's findings were but a tip of the iceberg, one can only imagine the contents of Gagnon's report. And yet to this day, in 2023, Catholics world over have not been given the contents of this report. And in spite of Freemasonry being the central culprit in Gagnon's report, the Pope who made Gagnon cardinal in 1985 changed the 1917 Code of Canon Law, Canon 2335, into a watered-down version with Canon 1374. The move is very similar to the choices the popes made with Bugnini and Baggio. Given the threat posed by Freemasonry and its infiltration into the Church, was this watering down and, shall we say, effeminization and pacification of the prohibition and condemnation of a movement diametrically opposed to Catholicism not at least naive? Meanwhile, 39 years have passed since Cardinals Odi and Staffa brought their allegations and evidence to Paul VI, followed by Cardinal Benelli's project to verify and Archbishop Gagnon's investigation. We see the rotten fruits of the damning evidence, of which we have never been told. Actually, I think that should be 49 years. Unveiling and giving life to the evidence itself that remains unreported and secret. This quote from Father Charles Theodore Muir himself back then seems to have aged well in terms of proof, that is. The battle for the Church's future would be colossal and brutal. Either the Church will remain Catholic or, God forbid, be usurped by the likes of Sebastiano Baggio and Jean Villot and their barbaric band of Masonic sympathizers and Marxists. Like the Synod on Synodality, we remain asking for an investigation and review, talking, expressing, debating, and still figuring it all out. But what about unearthing those documents and making them all public, as Father Muir himself requests? At the same time, we argue the revelation of the evidence isn't necessary to establish, shall we say, a murder in the 33rd degree of the Catholic faith and liturgy. As the crisis in the Church is unveiled and accelerates, separating the men from the boys in the episcopate, we see this pernicious and slow murder in the 33rd as a consequence of the grave errors of our time: effeminacy, naivete, and pacifism. Less words, more action. So ends the article. Well, friends, the Lord is Lord of everything, and he is the Lord of history. And he knows everything that's going on at the Vatican and everywhere else. And in the end, nothing will be hidden. Every secret will be exposed. We have to continue to fight for the faith. We have to continue to pray for all the bishops and all the priests. And we know that the Lord has won, is winning, and will win, past, present, and future. He struck down sin, Satan, and death. It's our duty to take up our cross and follow him every single day, without exceptions. He will give us the grace to do that, no matter what our state, no matter what our state in life is. If you're a bachelor like me, if you're a married man, your priest, housewife, whatever the particular case may be, the Lord will give you the grace. Do good, avoid evil, pray the rosary every single day, attend the traditional Latin Mass or Divine Liturgy, read a little bit every day from the Bible, get yourself a good catechism like the Catechism of the Council of Trent, the Catechism of St. Pius X, the Baltimore Catechism, and pass on the faith to your children and your grandchildren. Homeschool your kids. Keep them the heck out of the public schools. And the overwhelming majority of the Catholic schools aren't any better. You can do it. With God's grace, you can do anything. Let us conclude, my friends, by mentioning Helping Autism Through Learning and Outreach, available on the web at halo-soma.org. And tune into episodes 277 and 548 of the Our Lady of Fatima podcast for more information about RPM, which is an acronym for Rapid Prompting Method, a system of communication for non-speakers. Before my niece was 8, we didn't even know her favorite color. Now we know she's a comprehensive genius who can compose music, who's skilled in mathematics. She's a wonderful poet. She even knows foreign languages. How she knows what she knows, I have no idea. But she's one of the smartest people I've ever met. We would have known none of that without God's grace working through RPM, the very hard work on her part, and her mom and dad and her sister. Imagine how frustrated you would be if you were unable to communicate, couldn't tell someone what you wanted for breakfast, let alone what your hopes and dreams are. Just having a normal, regular life is so difficult for people who cannot speak. RPM takes them out of this prison of silence and brings them into the world of open communication where they belong. Communication is a human right, but you cannot use a tool unless you know about it. So please spread the website and these episodes. Once again, Helping Autism Through Learning and Outreach, halo-soma.org, and have everyone you know tune into episodes 277 and 548 of the Our Lady of Fatima podcast. May God bless you for doing that. Thank you so much for listening to the Our Lady of Fatima podcast, and I will talk to you again tomorrow. Goodbye, and God love you.